Welcome to the course Risk and Ambiguity. It's a course on individual decision-making under uncertainty, where there are uncertain events. Now, sometimes for the uncertain events, you know the probabilities of these events, then we call it decision-making under risk. Sometimes you don't know, then it's unknown probabilities, then we call it ambiguity. And this course will follow the behavioral approach. I'm starting this recording. It is a general introduction into the course. All the information can be found about this course in a website, and I give you the URL address. Here is the URL address of the website where you can find all the information about the course, textbook, homework, organization, everything. You can also in Google find my homepage that also gives a link to the course, but that's how you can find the information. The course is primarily meant for master students economics, but also adjacent fields, business, psychology, mathematics, and health students may be interested in the material presented here. I already told you it will be the behavioral approach, and maybe those of you who had some economic training or reading about it may know that the classical approach until the 1970s maybe was, it was usually assumed that the persons, the agents in the economic market, they are sort of emotionless, rational optimization, calculating beings, no emotions in them. So that was a bit of a rigid model. It was used for many purposes, but in the 1970s and later, it became more and more understood that this model is too rigid, too far from empirical reality, from human beings, Homo sapiens, to work well. And also for economic questions, psychologists have long time studied deviations from that model. But also for central economic questions, we have to reckon more with people behaving differently. We have to incorporate emotions in irrationalities. Sounds paternalistic, but that's the name of the game of this course. We have to incorporate such consideration to get more models. Also, a long time it was thought, especially in economics, that indeed people always knew that human beings and consumers in the market, they are irrational, but it was thought irrationality is so volatile, there's no system in it. We can never get any sensible model in it. So the best empirical approximation that we can do is to assume the rational behaving agents. But at the end of the 1970s, it became understood that that is not the case, that even if people are behaving in irrational manners, there are still systematic patterns in it so much that we can model and predict. And that was the main insight that the behavioral approach was born and came into being. And now it's growing more and more. And this course will be in that spirit. I already said this course will be on decision-making under uncertainty, so risk and ambiguity. But a little bit, I have a bit of broader ambitions, that because if for risk and ambiguity you saw in a deep manner, this course will not be very broad, but then it will be deep. If you saw in a deep manner how the behavioral approach works, how this goes with the normative model, the descriptive deviations, the reconciliations, paternalism, ethical discussions, all these things, psychology, more inputs. If you see that very well for one field, then also for other fields, and also in intertemporal, after you took this course on risk, I think you can also better do behavioral approach in intertemporal welfare. And you will see maybe the present bias in intertemporal is very much like certainty effect for risk, and risk aversion is very much like equality preference for welfare. So in that sense, the ambition of the course may be a bit broader than first meets the eye. Now, part of this course will be normative models, rational models, that are models and theories about decision making, how it's best to do wise decisions, what you can do, what is best for yourself. That is a normative approach. But other parts of this course will be descriptive approaches. Then we will study how people behave, and we will try to describe and predict, and we may not care so much about whether it's at all rational or not. The first approach is, for instance, if you're in business and you want to do good investments or decisions, then you want to do the best, what gives the maximum profit and other desirable things. Or in the health domain, you want to give the best treatment to patients, then you want to do good, rational decisions. But maybe in marketing, for instance, maybe you just want to know what consumers buy, what they do, and you you want to maximize profits if you know that best, and you may not be interested, may not be your task also to decide on whether it's really rational or not what the consumers are doing. So then it is an empirical approach more. And usually maybe business and health are most normatively oriented. Psychology is more descriptive, marketing is more descriptively oriented, economics is a bit in between. Studies too also have conceptual ambitions. I think that in this course you will better understand, for instance, what the concept of utility means. It will be an operational course, empirical meaning, falsify, verify, all these things will be made very explicit and clear from the beginning. And maybe many listeners maybe already they heard about the concept of utility in some other course or book, whatever it was. Then in 5 minutes, the teacher will tell you what utility is. You got some homework exercise, you got the right answer, and you say, what more is there to say? But there's much more. Maybe it took mankind 2 centuries to develop understanding of utility and to understand it as we do it now. In the 1890s, there was a marginal revolution changing much. 1930s, there was an ordinal revolution changing our views on utility, what really is and what is not utility. Sometimes maybe now, maybe we could even call it a behavioral revolution, although you have to be, a revolution is a heavy word, people often use it to oversell their things, so maybe I should be a bit careful. But these changes are so much, I think you can call it behavioral revolution that's now taking place. And indeed, our views and utility are again getting more nuances. And I hope my ambition in this course is that you will learn more. After this course, you will have a better feeling what utility means than you do right now. That is one of the many ambitions that I have. Now, what I like most about the behavioral approach, maybe if on the one hand you look at the normative rational models, on the other hand you look empirically descriptively what is happening, but you look at the difference between these two, because that's exactly where you can improve human decision making. That's the thing that I like most. And it sounds a bit paternalistic maybe and haughty, but as I said, that's the name of the game. We study, if you think you cannot help people make better decisions, then maybe you better take another field. We study decision theory to be able, at least I primarily do it to be able to help people make better decisions, also myself to make better decisions in my own life. Or maybe you know the term nudge, maybe many of you heard the term nudge. That's recently introduced 2010 by Thaler and Sunstein. 2017 Nobel Prize, the prize in honor of memory of Nobel in economics was given to Dick Thaler primarily for his work on nudge. That is a particular technique to use the behavioral insights to help people make better decisions, but then all kind of rules that you shouldn't be too paternalistic, things like that. But that's an example that it's very widespread. Almost every government nowadays has a nudging unit using the nudging techniques to improve all kind of decisions in society. So it's really widespread. It's a big field now. And that aspect is what I like most. Now, one thing that I like especially about decision theory, studying decision theory, so this course is individual decision making. Always when there's a model with a decision maker, I imagine that I myself am that decision maker. And if the model writes, maybe it's a normative model, it tries to propose what is a rational, wise way of decision making, then I ask myself, is this really what I would want to do? Do I really consider it to be rational? Or if there are biases, paradoxes, where people behave differently than they should, does this also happen to me? Can I improve? So in that sense, I like this field. I feel directly involved, and I advise everybody listening to study the course in that manner. Then you are directly involved in it. That's nice. You will also be really directly involved because part of this course will be experiments where we measure your utility function, your risk attitude, your ambiguity attitude. So that will make utility even more tangible and understandable, this conceptual ambition that I have. But in many ways, you are then involved in this course. Now, I want to end with one more remark on organization. It's also in the textbook, the URL number, the address that I gave you, it tells you where the textbook is that this course is based on, and also the website there will give. But here I also want to explain, this course can be followed by more or less mathematically interested and oriented people, and also by more or less empirically interested or oriented people. I try to organize that for all these kind of people. It can be useful to and easy, convenient to take the course. I do it by distinguishing between A, B, and C students. Now, C students are supposed to be the most mathematically, theoretically oriented, interested people. A students are most empirically oriented, B students in between. Usually mathematics student and the C approach is best, psychology student and the A approach is best, and economics student in between often B. Now with organization of homework, it goes, so the textbook has all kind of exercises. These exercises have superscripts. If the superscript is C, then it's theoretical, maybe mathematical, then it is for C student, not for B and A. If an exercise has superscript B, then it is less mathematically oriented. Then it is not for the A students, but it is for the B students, but it's also for the C students. If an exercise is superscript A is most empirically oriented, then it's for A student, but also B and C. So every student does the exercise with superscript, but also the lower superscripts. And from this, maybe you think, oh, that means a C is most difficult, that a C student have most to do. Well, that is not the case, because there will be further homework in the website. We'll give it, it's not in the book, but there will be extra assignments and exercises. And there will be more work for A student, also a bit more work for B student. A students, they are supposed to analyze data sets, and they are supposed to do a take-home exercise with empirical questions. And B students a bit less so. So in that sense, the course is meant to be equally big and difficult, but only differently oriented. But that way, different people, I of course hope that many people will just do everything A, B, and C. But in principle, you can take this course if you're very mathematically oriented, but also if that is less the case. Well, that's where I'm going to end this introduction into the course in this first recording. Then the next recording will start with concrete theory.